Hey there, friends. You guys know that I do my best to be a truth dealer. I try to call out the BS. I try to call out the liars and the frauds. And I really do my best to not twist and disseminate information that's going to be deceitful or a lie in many cases. But once again, we find ourselves always looking and playing by a different set of rules than the people that are on the other side of this argument regarding the Second Amendment. In this particular case, I have found multiple inconsistencies and just flat outright lies with the anti-gun movement because ultimately their goal is to stoke fear and to drive membership, right? I mean, it's a big enterprise. It's the anti-gun enterprise is exactly that. Nobody loses money in the anti-gun enterprise. Very low overhead, very high salaries. They can get those salaries because they bring in so much money in membership. They dance on the graves of dead people and do literally nothing to encourage any kind of safety, but we know that they have hijacked that term gun safety. And it pisses me off that people on the right, if you want to call it that, or at least gun rights activists, have not struggled to take that phrase back. Today I'm talking specifically about the Gabby Giffords, well actually it's the Mark Kelly thing. He uses Gabby as a prop. But Mark Kelly Giffords' little Giffords law firm thing. I call them out often at Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. You can follow me there at Paul@LAA or just check it out and you'll find me on there somewhere. But I call these people out routinely because they're always spouting lies. Right now they're gearing up for something. Don't know what it is, but they're gearing up for something. So I went to their website and it looks like the teacher being armed issues, since that's kind of a hot topic in Tennessee right now, is what they're really trying to focus on. Of course, they inaccurately say, join the fight for gun safety. When I went through this entire website, there's not the first glimpse of gun safety. What do I mean by gun safety? Any kind of educational material that would help save lives. I'm not talking about banning things. I'm talking about any publication, a picture, a meme, a cartoon, something that would help, say, I don't know, maybe somebody who comes across a gun. Since they're so focused on the children, you would think they would focus some of their efforts on some kind of way to get across to a young person in the event they come across a gun. I find it odd and super peculiar that they don't. It's almost like they want the kids to have that accident of stumbling across that gun and inadvertently shooting somebody. I mean, seems kind of sinister, kind of crappy, but it really seems like they would be okay with that. And I do believe they are okay with that. Going through their website, of course, it's very easy to give them money. They make it super easy because, hey, this is how Mark Kelly Giffords and everybody else over there, they get to pay their salaries and their big giant mortgages in their massive houses. These types of organizations are no different and no less of a scam than the Black Lives Matter scams out there. You're just giving money for a different cause. But it goes to the same thing. It goes to people who are bilking the innocent and the stupid and gullible into giving them money so they can spend it on themselves. I'd found it wildly ironic that if you look down to the contribution rules, that it says under number 1, I am a U.S. citizen or lawfully admitted permanent resident, i.e. green card holder. Why would an organization like these wackos on the far left, who are very encouraged on open borders, when it comes to receiving money, they expect you to be a U.S. citizen or a green card holder? So in order for you to receive their money, you want proof that they're a U.S. citizen. But in order for them to vote, you don't care. We're on a mission to save lives from gun violence. Really, so what are you going to do? Well, it looks like nothing. First slide here on this big long article talking about how they don't want guns in schools has a picture of Aunt B here saying teachers want to teach every incident of mishandled guns in schools. Okay, first of all, there are several teachers, like most of them, that I don't want to have a gun. I've never been a proponent of just openly, indiscriminately let every single teacher who wants to carry a gun on campus carry it. Nah, I've seen your product. I'm not really encouraged by that. I've often said there should be a strict set of rules as long as you're going to make a school a gun-free zone. And it's important that you understand that, because I think they're unconstitutional. I know they're unconstitutional, and they should not exist. But as long as they exist and you could throw me in jail for having a gun, by God, I want that teacher on there to be properly trained. And I don't know about old Aunt B right here, but trust me, I'm not asking her old rickety ass to hold a gun and carry it inside a classroom with my kid in it. But I've had plenty of run-ins with government teachers who have abused not just my son, but other people. I know this. I've seen it with my own eyes. They think they're better than you, and they actually chose, and this is no offense to those of you that, who are in the educational field out there, but you must agree when you go into school, I'm not talking about specialized areas in schools. I'm talking about when you just go in, I want to be a teacher. It's probably the easiest curriculum out there. Really? You think I'm being unfair about that? Business definitely is a harder one. Engineering, doctor, attorney, all these fields out there that you can make a lot of money, and for some reason, it's a little bit harder. The teaching curriculum is one where a lot of people go. There are good teachers out there, I will admit. I had some, and I know some still. I know some teachers that do it professionally because they love the students and they love the profession. I know way more who got that degree because they could not get any other degree and they wanted an easier way out. Case in point, I just had an argument with this cow on a Facebook post, and I want you to see how these people think. She told me, so it's absolutely no secret I'm a strong liberal. I feel bad for you that you're so scared you feel you need lots of guns to defend yourself. I thought you kind of lived in a good neighborhood. Maybe it's gone down. As far as defending yourself from the government, you go right ahead. I'm sure you could put a world of hurt on any army man somewhere directing a drone against you. Boy, that sounds just like the wackos, the anti-gun wackos like the Swalballs and Joe Biden talking about using F-16s and drones on us. All these slaves like this cow right here, they have a same tendency to just vomit and regurgitate the same crap. I want you to see what I responded to this hairless cow. For the record, sugar, this is from me. For the record, sugar, I don't have guns because I'm scared. Stop parroting the anti-gun bullshit. Makes you look stupid. You're voting for Biden, so there is that. But don't feel sorry for me. Trust me. This is a person, and I know this person. They're remarkably overweight. They're in a wheelchair. I don't know if it's legitimate. I mean, it could be. With that much weight pressing down on the knees, it probably is legitimate that she's in a wheelchair. Homer Simpson has more hair than this person. She got fired from her teaching job. How in the hell do you get fired from a teaching job? But that's the kind of people that I don't want to have a gun. Thank you very much. Next, I'll take the next applicant. Now, regarding the Giffords website, here's where I get into where the lies are. Armed adults frequently mishandle their guns in schools. Keeping kids safe means keeping guns off K through 12 campuses. Well, that's just not true, actually. And if you want to take the per campus, per person, per hours there, per incident, it's pretty telling that this really is not a problem. But I'll admit, I don't want the wrong people carrying guns around my kids. Now, it says our comprehensive analysis finds there have been nearly 100 publicly reported incidents of mishandled guns at schools in the last 5 years. So essentially 20 a year, right? They highlight 3 of them. I guess, if you were going to try to make a point by getting people to only look at 3, would you pick the strongest 3? I think you would. Either they didn't or they're stupid. The first one says a teacher's loaded gun falling from his waistband during a cartwheel. If you go to the story, report loaded gun fell out of substitute teacher's waistband on Pinellas County playground. A substitute teacher's gun was loaded with 19 rounds of ammunition when it fell out of his waistband on the Arona Elementary School playground Tuesday. The student said teachers immediately cleared the playground. District officials said Jones cooperated and was quickly taken into custody. Jones was arrested and charged with bringing a concealed weapon on a school campus. So this teacher did not have permission to bring this gun on the campus. How are you equating this to teachers should not be allowed to have guns on campus? This person, because a school still is a gun-free zone, no matter how unconstitutional that is, schools are a gun-free zone. This person illegally brought a gun onto the campus. They broke a law. This was not a teacher who was cleared to have a gun on campus to protect children. This was not a teacher who received training, safety training, qualification, certification in order to carry a gun on campus. This person brought a gun on campus when they weren't supposed to. Kind of tells me a little bit about the type of school they probably were. He was going to be substitute teaching in, probably needed it. And if I see the numbers on Gun Violence Archive every single month where 90% of the cases are kids bringing guns to school, the teachers are outgunned anyway by the kids that have guns on campus. So maybe he knew this information also. But nevertheless, this is not a trained, certified teacher who has proven their value in holding a gun on a school campus. Their next example says a student grabbing an officer's gun while the officer attempted to subdue the student. Do I really need to read this one? I mean, do I really need to read this? Let's read it anyway. Gun discharges during struggle between deputy high school student. Oakland County Sheriff's officials say an 18-year-old student was being arrested at Oxford High School about 4 p.m. Tuesday for a domestic assault when he tried to grab the deputy's gun, causing it to fire. The gun never left the holster and the bullet ricocheted into a nearby wall. I thought our argument was on teachers and staff carrying guns in school. This didn't involve, neither one of these people were a teacher or staff member. It was a resource officer who, other than protecting his gun, did nothing wrong. It was a student, a thug, a criminal, who tried to take the gun off of this resource officer. How was this included? This is your argument for why trained and certified teachers should not have firearms on campus? Please explain that one. Their third and final example of their super strong case that you're trying to make says a teacher unintentionally firing a gun in a class during a safety demonstration. This should be good. Seaside High teacher accidentally fires gun in class, students say. A teacher who also serves as a resource police officer accidentally fired a gun inside a Seaside High School classroom Tuesday. Dennis Alexander was teaching a course about gun safety for his administration and just his class when his gun went off at 11 a.m. Alexander was pointing his gun at the ceiling when it fired. Pieces of the ceiling fell to the ground. So wait a minute. You've got a teacher, this guy was a teacher, who sounds like he was a resource, according to them, police officer. So he had permission to carry a gun there likely whenever he was a police resource officer. But I wonder if there's any rules in class that say that you can take your gun out and show it to the class. Even in schools like Tennessee will have going forward, where they do have the right, a teacher does, to carry a firearm in the class. I wonder if one of the things you can do is take it out and play with it. Show it to the class, aim it, show them how to unload it, show them how to load it. I doubt this guy had permission to do this. This guy just made my case on qualifying, certifying, making sure you have the right teachers and the right people carrying firearms on campus. You can't include examples like this and then get behind all these administrators and teachers and act like they're the greatest thing in the world. You're proving to me that you have dumbasses carrying guns on school property. That's your people. So going through their list of 100, as you can see, this is total BS. If you notice at the very top, it says as a school security guard. So we've got a security guard doing something stupid. The next one says a school resource officer. So an untrained resource officer has nothing to do with a teacher. My point is, they're trying to say teachers should not be carrying guns. A school district employee, that's probably not a teacher since it specifically says a school district employee. That's likely a janitor or somebody like that. Here we go. A teacher left her gun unattended in a teacher's workroom. I doubt that teacher was properly trained. They never refer any of these stories about the type of training or certification these people receive. A little bit further down, a school bus driver, a vice principal, left a gun unattended in a restroom. Oh, great. That's awesome. A teacher was arrested for bringing a gun to school and keeping it in her bag. Teacher was not authorized to carry the gun on school. Again, as long as these schools are gun-free zones, Anybody who's bringing the gun to school is breaking the law. So you are sitting here siding with teachers, saying how wonderful they are, and using those same idiots as your reason why guns shouldn't be included in schools? This is not a comprehensive list of, let's say, hundreds. Like you said, there's 100 different cases. This is not a comprehensive list of teachers who were properly trained and certified shooting people. Your whole argument is that if there are guns in the school, that people are going to die. Nobody died in these cases. If you run through this list, this is not a list of people being shot. This is a list of people doing stupid things, and fortunately, nobody got hurt. Moving on with some of their lies, they say in the second sentence in this paragraph down below, arming teachers is an incredibly unpopular position, opposed by 7 out of 10 teenagers, 8 out of 10 teachers, and 7 out of 10 parents, and for good reason. The story that they cite in this is their own story and their own opinion. These chicks literally wrote a story about their opinion about how unpopular it is to have guns in schools, their own opinions, and then they wrote the story about it, and then they cite their story as this kind of reference point that's supposed to make the case. It's their own argument. They are citing their own opinions to try to make their case. How flimsy and weak is that? Now, one final thing they did, which just kind of shocked me, because they try to make the argument oftentimes that only police officers should have guns, right? That's all we hear. We hear that, nobody should have a weapon of war. Nobody needs a gun that holds more than 10 rounds except for law enforcement. But they slam law enforcement, and they act like law enforcement is too incompetent to carry a gun on campus also. They say a study published in March 2019 found no evidence that the presence of resource officers in schools lessened the severity of school shooting incidents. I pulled up the study that they reference, and this is from Science Direct, which, believe me, they are not going to be pro-gun. And they actually say at the bottom down here, whereas the presence of a school resource officer was unassociated with any reduction in school shooting severity. You understand what they're saying right there, right? They're saying that having a resource officer on campus had no effect in reduction in school shooting severity. So they don't have a measurable impact, first of all, because they would say if there was a measurable impact. Secondly, how do you measure a negative? In other words, if a school resource officer is the deterrent of an actual school shooting, not Larry, the substitute teacher, bringing his gun and doing cartwheels on the playground. I'm talking about an actual school shooter. The thing that they're really trying to scare you with, which, by the way, we've only had one this year on January 4th, not 50 or 70, however many they say we've had. So if these resource officers are the reason why we haven't had all but one school shooting so far this year, how do you act like it has no impact? What if that was the deterrent? What if these people who were seeking an easy target, a kill zone, like a gun-free zone, like a school, especially with, we've seen in the latest gender pretender who said that they wanted to go to an elementary school because they were easier targets. How come we don't see that right now? We have to believe at some point that maybe they did not choose the elementary school down the street or the middle school down the road because there was a school resource officer. How do you sit here and say it had no effect when you have no way of measuring if it had that negative effect, that deterrent effect? I will tell you this, I don't think that school resource officers are the only way to protect a school. There's many, many ways to do it. But I have to believe in my mind, based on all the things, manifestos, diaries, anything that we've seen from a lot of these, quote, mass shooters that shot up schools, they were very clear why they chose the schools that they chose. If you think about it, the Nashville school, when that transgender pretender shot up that school, they did it specifically because it was an easy target with nobody armed there. So I have to believe there's a lot more that's going on out there, and just because you can't quantify this doesn't mean that it's not having an effect. It's just not a measurable effect that you can actually tout. Lastly, guys, I want to talk about this cute little graphic they have here. There is strong opposition to arming teachers. Really, this is what the Giffords people came up with. The first set there of statistics, so to speak, is the little backpacks. It's cute. 7 out of 10 teenagers oppose arming teachers. With the number of guns on campus that I saw on the Gun Violence Archive, I can see why the students don't want that for 2 reasons. One, they don't want anybody being able to shoot back at them. We've got a lot of students, hundreds and hundreds of students a day carrying guns on campus. They don't want to be shot. They don't want opposition. They want to be the alpha. They want to be the one calling the shots. They don't want the teachers equally or outgunning them. Secondly, who's teaching these kids? A bunch of, not in all cases, but in many cases, a bunch of nutbag, 7 hair on their head, overweight, narcissistic nut jobs who are twisted and are going to cast another vote for Joe Biden in November. Is it any surprise that 7 out of 10 teenagers that they polled, they picked the polling place, these people did? Down at the very bottom, if you look, the source is the Washington Post. The Washington Post ain't no friend of the Second Amendment community. I can promise you that. And if you go downtown into Washington, D.C. and start asking people what they think about gun control, what do you think you're going to find? You're going to get this kind of result. 7 out of 10 teenagers. Come on, man, of course. In the Washington, D.C. area, there's probably 7 out of 10 of these kids carrying a gun to school every day. So this might be a perfect representation of the students in Washington, D.C. who carry guns to school. So maybe this number is accurate in Washington, D.C. The next one, 8 out of 10 teachers. I've said enough about the teachers. That's probably how many nutbag teachers we have out there. Again, as I stated, I know some really good teachers. I know teachers who do it for the love of the students and the love of teaching, and it's probably only 2 out of 10. So I would have to say that the little apple illustration here is probably also pretty accurate. The next one, 7 out of 10 parents. You know why? Because they see the same thing that I do. I would be willing to bet that any responsible parent has probably been just like me. It looks like in this case, they only think 3 out of 10 of these teachers should be carrying guns to school. So they think that 7 out of 10 are nut jobs. I will stand firm on my statement that I do feel like teachers should be able to carry guns to school. I feel like they need certification training and anything else, background checks, routinely. I think that as long as we have gun-free zones, that I can't carry a gun on campus, that the more trained people on campus that are not nutbags, the better to protect my child. Now, a lot of this is a reflection on what the unconstitutional Department of Education has done to the teaching industry. They do everything they can to brainwash the teachers, who in turn brainwash the children. And I have to refer to one of my favorite quotes from a movie, Jack Nicholson, when he went into the diner in the movie As Good as It Gets, and when they asked him why he brings his own silverware with him, he says some kind of a comment. It's a judgment call. I've seen the help.
All right, what's with the plastic picnic wear? Why don't you try ours? Afraid it isn't clean? You okay? Yep.
Well, I see the help. It's a judgment call.
I agree with Jack.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's over.